Let's see. Here we are. Can everyone see? Yeah, great. Let me find where I am in life. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so that was just a quick warm up. Okay, in the chat, if you're on your phone, you can do this. If you're not on your phone, maybe you just want to pop a word into the chat. So describe where you are in youth ministry. Use emojis if you can. I know that some of us are on a laptop, so we can't. So you could maybe just write a word. We have some answers in the chat. Fari says she's like slightly nervous, excited. Is that right?
It's nervous laughter, you know, when you're just like, hey, yeah.
A bit of nervous laughter.
We figure it out as we
go. Who else? Oscar, are those tears of what? what is going on? Are those stress tears? Are they tears of joy? Are they tears of laughter? Rachel says she's hopeful. It's a good place to be. Hannah says she's excited but exhausted. I think a lot of youth leaders can relate to that. Go on, Oscar, you were going to say something.
It's more tears of joy, because I'm going to be walking this path with others, and hopefully find myself as well.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm glad to hear that. Prince is thinking. He's got a thinking face. Kerry Ann has a range of emotions. Kerry Ann, explain to us what's going on for you.
Yeah, it's kind of that roller coaster experience. You know, one day there's a breakthrough, the next day you're like, yeah, Lord, I need your help. Another day you're feeling overjoyed, like you're feeling joy and you're feeling love. So yeah, there's a lot.
Love that. I think everyone, my experience in youth ministry is definitely, I definitely relate to that. I'm sure everyone here relates to that too. Jodie's got her fingers crossed, and she's a little bit shy. Is that right? Did I interpret that correctly?
It's more
nervous.
Happy.
More happy.
Yeah. Happy.
Okay, great.
Well, so far.
Look, Becco, have I said your name correctly? Please help me. Where are you?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
It's as close as anyone gets. I've learned to just live with it. It's have a go. You're fine. It's not a problem.
Would you be kind enough to say it for me?
Dobego.
Okay, thank you. You are, what's that? Is that like a nervous smile?
Yeah, nervous / tired.
Oh, I think Hannah can relate to that. Okay, let's move on, guys. Thank you for sharing. So that's a nice way to check in. So even if you were with your youth, that would be like a nice way of checking in. Oh, here, Adam, can you arrange us a poll, agree or disagree? So the quote says, oh, maybe I can get, Rachel, would you be kind enough to read this for us, this quote?
Yep, sure, yeah. Leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character, but if you must be without one, be without strategy.
Oh, I thought this was a little bit controversial, so I want to know what you guys think. Do we have a poll available?
Just give me a sec.
Okay, so have a think about whether you agree or disagree with this statement.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to poll it if it's a little bit difficult. We can just talk about it. Shall we talk about it until we can get a poll?
Wait, let me try some.
Is it because I'm sharing the screen? It might be more difficult.
No, I just typed it up and saved it, and then it. Wait a sec. Oh no, I've still got the Marmite.
Well, let's just pretend that it says true is agree and false is disagree. Okay, so if everyone's willing to place their opinion on the poll, please.
Sorry, guys, you're gonna have to imagine that. Yeah, Marmite and leadership is the same thing. Three more to vote.
How do I vote?
Are you a host, Sam? I think if you're one of the hosts, you're not allowed to vote. Potentially.
I haven't got it.
At the minute, 14 people have, it's 93%, so 64% said true, and 36% said false.
Oh, we've had an extra vote.
Add an extra one.
Okay. Would someone who said false, would you be willing to share your thoughts behind why?
I will.
Yes, please.
So my name is Masonda. I'm from Welling Garden Community Church, and I said false. And I think maybe I'm just speaking from my personal experience, because last year was my first year actually taking on the youth leadership role. And I personally feel without a strategy, it kind of feels like the blind leading the blind. So it's better to have a strategy in place so that you know for yourself as a youth leader what exactly you're going to do for that year. Without that, it just feels as if there's going to be no structure to the year.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else with a different perspective, or maybe I'll let you guys speak. I won't interpret your thoughts.
Yeah, no, mine kind of comes from personal experience as well. I voted true, just because, I mean, obviously, as it says, ideally you would have both, but if you've got like a strong and quick thinking character, if there is no strategy, you can kind of work with that. Whereas if all you have is your strategy, if things kind of don't go according to plan and you have no idea how to deal with that, then it can get kind of messy. So I've had a couple of, I was a senior student ambassador at uni, and we had one really big event with, I think it's like 200-300 students, and one of the people who hosted a workshop just didn't turn up. And so it was kind of the thing where we had a strategy, it was planned, and then it just flopped. So I had to come up with something really, really quickly, which I think you need a strong character to do. Whereas, yeah, strategies can not work out, or maybe it might work and then you get to the end of it and then it's like, okay, what do we do now? So I think with a strong character, then you might be able to be a bit more flexible.
Oh, good take. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in?
What do we mean when we say character?
Or would you like to offer any thoughts you have about that?
I guess that, yeah, it's a bit difficult for me to answer because I'm not sure what you mean by character. Because I mean, if you have character but you have nothing you have nothing that's presentable that people could operate by, then what does your character do? You know, there has to be something that follows that character, or something practical. So I guess that's my interpretation of the question.
Thanks. Where are we, guys? Oh, someone was going to speak.
Oh, I'm just going to jump in as well and say, I lean more towards the last 2 points that were said, because when I think about character, the word of principles came to mind. So I feel like even when there isn't a strategy, for example, for us, like COVID-19 completely destroyed or just completely off-rooted the strategy that we had in place. But I think when just in general life as well, like when we live by principles, it doesn't matter what circumstances come our way or when the strategy falls apart. From my personal experience, as long as like your character, your principles, it dictates your motives, it dictates your intentions. And I think for me that has been even more important than having like a clear plan in place. For example, like with COVID, where everything we had planned completely, I don't even have a word for it right now, but sorry.
Thank you for sharing, Danielle. I mean, I genuinely was interested in your responses because I could definitely see it from both perspectives, and with kind of the light of COVID shining on the issue as well, it kind of brings us into a different place. So thank you guys for sharing. Let's see if we agree or disagree as we move forward throughout this. Okay. So Daniel, would you be kind enough to read this quote for us?
Sure thing. Just quickly, I know everyone does this. Just quickly, there's a temptation to add an I, but the I is not there, so it's they now.
Where am I?
Can you hear me?
Oh, you know what day now. Sorry, I didn't know that.
All the time.
I also was I was speaking to Daniel from Bristol. Hi, Daniel. But that's good to know. Thank you for telling me.
You're muted. Okay, yeah, I can read that. So it says, we understand youth ministry to be that work of the church that is conduced for, with, and by young people.
Okay, so I should have ignored that little bit at the bottom there. So yeah, for, with, and by young people. That's our aim. Okay. Has everyone got a phone to hand? Or you can open another tab on your screen. So there's a code at the bottom and it says menti.com. So if you could type that code in and put your response while I try and share the correct page, that would be great. If you're having difficulties, let me know. Has anyone found it? Are we having difficulties? Where are we with it?
Maybe put the code in the chat.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Or share the screen again.
Let me find you. I've got too many tabs open. Okay. Okay, you should be able to see the code. There's 722479.
I've logged in, but it says it's not open for voting.
Same here.
You might have to click on that lock sign.
Yeah. Me. Oh, I don't understand why it is not working. Voting is closed. I've not had this problem before. Okay, guys, what we're going to do, as fun as this would have been, we can just write it in the chat. So I don't want to waste time trying to fix it. So if we just write it in the chat, and I'll go back to the presentation. Can everyone still see?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So 3 words that describe creative youth ministry to you. Oh, I'm giving away my answers. There you go. Okay. Is Menti, yeah, Menti is free, by the way, guys. Well, there are different levels to Menti, okay? So some are paid and some are not. Okay. So we have teamwork, brainstorming, and love. We have meaningful. Creative youth ministry is meaningful, supportive, and engaging. Hannah says expression, growth, challenge. Engaging, nurturing, and spirit-led. I like that. Thank you, Kerry, and I like that. Jodie says innovative, intentional, and caring. Original, engaging, and non-judgmental. We're getting a lot of engaging, vulnerable, open. A teachable spirit, focused, engaging again, authentic, patience, honesty, and empathy. Daniel says it is youth focused, engaging again, spiritually uplifting. Okay. I am really happy that we've got so much engaging, because that's where I was going, and that's also where the General Conference Youth Ministry takes it as well. So number 1, and these are also open to your interpretation. You may not agree. These might not be your top 3, but we have engaging, holistic, and driven. I really liked the fact that coming up in the chat, we had a lot of words that were kind of centered around relationships, and I think holistic hints at that, but it doesn't make it as plain. So we had a lot of intentionality, nurturing, supportive. So I think that's definitely something that should also be up there in the top words that describe creative youth ministry. Okay, why does it need to be engaging? Because according to the Barna Group, 60% of young adults who attended church in their teens will ultimately become spiritually disengaged at some point in their 20s. So we need to engage our youth now and later, so that they remain engaged in the future. So I think 100% that is very, I think you guys are all on the right track in terms of your insight into youth ministry. What else do we know? We know that these are American, this data is American, but I think it reflects what we see here in the UK also. So it says 63% of surveyed Adventist youth reported they did not feel like they belonged at church. 33 did not feel like they could be themselves at church. 47 indicated that their church was an exclusive club, and nearly 60% reported that while they used to be involved in church, they didn't fit in anymore. So that kind of brings us back to that engagement. How do we foster engagement? I thought it'd be good for us to look at these examples. So we know that Jesus is our example in all things. So thinking about Jesus's ministry, we also have, I thought, Elisha, in terms of, I was thinking about the school of the prophets and his ministry to the young people in that context. And also Paul's mentoring of Timothy as a young man. But I would like to know, I hope this works, because I haven't had a chance to test all of these things out. But this is another kind of interactive forum called Padlet. And I'm going to try and share the screen. And I will put the link below in the chat. So can we think of biblical examples of creative youth ministry? So I've said Jesus, Paul and Timothy, but maybe you guys can think of some other examples. Okay. This is the link, guys, to Padlet. And if you just press the icon, there's a pink icon in the bottom right-hand corner, you will be able to add to the Padlet. So oh yay, it's working. So this is a resource that we use in our kind of Zoom AY quite often. And it is free. There is a paid version and there's also a free version. So let's see what we have coming up. We have Daniel, I think is it Hannah? Daniel and Hannah. Ruth and Naomi, never thought of that. I like that. Jesus and his mother. And that works both ways. Elisha, Elijah, Joshua. Eli and Samuel. Okay, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit and ask you a kind of follow-up question. So in terms of when we think about the So we were talking earlier about character. So when we think about what drove what was the driving force behind these examples, are there any words or phrases that come to your mind as to the type of things we can see when we explore these biblical examples a little bit more? Someone's written successorship. I like that. Who wrote successorship? While everyone else is typing, would you mind expanding on that a little bit more?
I didn't realize it had sent, but yeah, that was me. I think just looking at, for example, Moses to Joshua, just the idea that they're not always going to be around, and it's important to train the next generation of the ways of leadership so that they too can do similarly.
I think it's an excellent point. I think we see that now as well in our church, the way our church grows and the dynamics of our church. And that's definitely something I think we need to have in mind when we are working with our young people. Okay, let me see what else is going on here. So someone's written Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Their life was a living example of what they stood for and preached. Okay, so living out our Christianity. Eli taught Samuel how to listen to God's voice. Okay. Elisha connected with people, and Elijah mentored. It was Elisha's mentor, wasn't he, as well? And Joshua, he modeled in his leadership role. Ruth and Naomi, yeah, we know that Naomi was encouraging to Ruth. Oh, and she had cultural awareness. I love that. It's a good point. Nehemiah, oh, I've lost it. It's moving all over the place. So Nehemiah and everyone, I'm assuming that means and everyone else. Oh, and it's moved again. I can't keep up with it. Empowerment and togetherness, serving others. Okay. You can continue to add to that if something else comes to your mind. But I'm going to go back to the presentation. Bear with my slow internet. Okay, here we go. So I think this moves us nicely onto, we're going to look at three components. So we have the bones, the basic requirements of creative youth ministry. So before we can put on all the fireworks and the whistles and the bells, we need to have the basic requirements. So that we're looking at the strategy, right? So before in that quote, it spoke about strategy. So I was wondering if you guys would be willing to share with us what that looks like for you in terms of your planning and how you fill your calendar. So does anyone have a particular way of doing that for their young people and would be willing to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of the obvious one, but just looking at events and things that have worked in the past, and especially those that have sparked engagement, I guess. And also because we've just transferred leadership this year for the first time in a couple of years. So we did like a youth-wide poll about what did you guys like, what did you guys not like, and then taking that feedback on board. So just starting off, we knew, so we have a couple of programs that we do every month that we know we can continue, and some other things we've kind of cut down on just because we can tell that people are tired of looking at their screens so much. But yeah, just kind of having that structure of, okay, so we know we're definitely keeping this going, and what is it that we don't necessarily need to give people a bit of a break.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything to add to that? Or Hannah?
Yeah, I agree with everything that she was saying. For my team, because we literally just had our meeting just before this, and we talked about things that we want to do for the year, and what the church, the wider church, are asking as well for us to fulfill the requirements, and we're just trying to merge them together to make sure everybody is, catered for.
Absolutely. Anyone else? So I don't think that there's one particular way of doing this. I've kind of thrown some examples up on the screen of this slightly covered up area with NECyouth last year's calendar that we know did not go like that at all. We still managed to do prayer warriors, but I think mostly everything else was removed from the calendar, and we have kind of some online events, what that looks like, NEC ones, church ones. This one's from Parkway Church, or Parkside Church. I've just whipped those off Instagram, but just in terms of having, sometimes you don't know where to start, but if you just have your calendar in front of you and you're like, okay, what does the calendar say to me? That can be a good place to start in terms of just having the bones, the skeleton of what to flesh out. I'm not going to dwell on that too much. So the next thing is adding the heart, the muscle, and the other vital organs. So staying focused and meeting your objectives through programming and content and approach. So thinking about not only what programs you're going to have, but maybe are those programs going to have a theme? What are the objectives that you're trying to meet? So like Hannah was saying, her church has certain things that they're looking for from the youth department in terms of what objectives they need the youth department to meet, and programming with those things in mind is important. So we can have the bones, but we have to make those bones live, right? We can't just have dry bones. We need those bones to get themselves together. So it's important for us to find out our why. I think this relates a little bit to what you were saying, Hannah. So why? What is your why? If you're looking to create a change, maybe you feel like there needs to be a change in the level of engagement at your church. This quote says that it takes 3 to 5 years to change a church, and it takes at least 7 years to transform it. So a big task. But in order to start off, we are thinking about, I think this is something that I've used with our youth team. So questions to ask ourselves: what are we known for? When people look at us, what do they say about our church or about our youth ministry? What do our young people say about us? What do we want to be known for, and how can we bridge that gap? And that's kind of like a good place to start, a good place to start in terms of where you're building those extra things into your youth ministry. So think about the basic. So I think this is kind of a macro level. So things like, what does the church want from us? What are other people thinking? But then at this macro level, we're thinking about the relationship side, the relationship with our young people, and how we develop that creatively. What are the needs that we see? These things are the things that inform our decision making and the way in which we present to our youth in order to foster that engagement. So set your intentions. These are intentions that are taken from the GC, so the General Conference Youth. It says that we must try to encourage our youth to build a personal devotional life, foster a sense of attainment, train them. So that goes back to that kind of that superseding mentoring, allowing them to be in a place where they can take over from us, knowing that we are not sustainable. Providing opportunities to build relationships, opportunities to grow, teaching them about stewardship, and allowing them to realize their individual worth and spiritual gifts. So that these are what the General Conference says are important for us to consider. So now we're thinking about, how do we dress it up? We've got the bones and we've got the muscle, but like, this is like where culturally, how do we dress it up? How do we engage our youth and be relevant to them? So we're encouraging ownership and giving responsibility. A successful model will utilize, engage, and motivate youth to come up with creative ways to conduct the program. And creative ideas and application, I think this is something that we have already touched on. These things are born out of insight, influence, exchange, and never isolation. So that relationship is important, but also, who said they took a poll? Someone said that they took a poll of last year, so they knew where they were going this year. So that kind of having insight into what's working, what's not working, what's engaging, what are people tired of, is important. It's important to have that kind of that level of discernment, and to pray and ask the Holy Spirit to inform us in that way. Okay, so how do we utilize creativity for engagement? Let's talk about this. Does anyone have any ideas, thinking maybe about what you've seen done, or what you've experienced as a young person, or what you are planning to do or doing right now?
So in our church, we're actually allowed to meet. Don't ask me how. The powers that be said it's okay. So the youth are actually meeting in church, and I said, how do you want to go about having a service? Do you want to do it like normal Sabbath school, divine? And he said, well, why should we limit it to just that? We could do Sabbath school, and then they said they want to do AYS for divine instead, and have more discussion, more panels, you know, for the youth, because they said we don't have an opportunity to talk in this way. So it's better. They would preferred having a discussion rather than having somebody preaching. So I was like, okay, well, we'll see how it goes, isn't it? So that's what they asked. So yeah,
I think that's great. So I think we can draw from that the fact that as a church, as youth leaders, you guys are listening to what your youth are saying, and you're willing to try it out, even if you have reservations about it. Willing to be flexible and give it a go, and kind of monitor the situation and steer the situation in order to allow that creativity to happen. Anyone else have any examples?
Hi.
Hi.
We just launched. Hi.
Hi.
I'm from Darling Research.
Hi.
We just launched a Vespers Bible study for the youth. We had the second session on Friday, but we decided to study the book of Acts. So basically looking into the history of the church. And now our age group is actually quite young in our church. Our oldest is 16 and the youngest is 12. So it's quite a precarious age. But what we did, we had a meeting and asked them, because I really wanted to go for every day since they're at home, we're in lockdown. But because they're busy with school, we decided to try it for just once a week. We had assigned a chapter per child, and then we were going to attempt to get through 5 chapters in one session. But at the first session, one person took an hour. But because everyone had prepared, we decided to carry on, and we finished 4 chapters, 2.5 hours. So I thought, this can't go, they would get tired. So on last Friday, what we did was I said, we're just gonna stick with 1 hour. And then after 1 hour, I said, there's a quiz. I made them all write down 5 things that they learned. And then we would compare. If someone else repeated what they wrote down, they would lose the point for that. That alone took another hour, and it was wonderful because you get to check what they actually took out from the discussion. And then some people the questionable things that they come up with, then you get to check that as well. Like somebody said, because we were talking about Ananias and Sapphira. So God is not always forgiving. He's like, well, okay, I don't know that that's valid kind of thing. But that got them more excited. And actually, we went to 2 hours, but nobody noticed because they were so engaged and they were having fun. That's it.
Thank you. That's great. And if you want to do an exchange program, my church is doing the Book of Acts at the moment with our youth. So hi. We'd love to get involved with you guys. I'll try and hunt you down. So I think that goes to say that what I'm hearing is that reflection fosters creativity, right? So not just having your program planned without kind of gaining feedback and reflection and allowing your young people to reflect on what they have learned in action and then moving forward, and kind of that flexibility again is coming up, where that fosters engagement, and that is a creative way of doing your youth ministry, where it's not like a rigid plan. But I heard you say that several times then you've tweaked your original plan in order to meet the needs of your young people. So that's excellent. Anyone else? I love these examples, and I don't know about anyone else, but they're really useful. We can take them away and kind of utilize them. Anyone else would like to share?
So I'll give you one. At the moment, because everything's on Zoom, you can literally get people from all over the world to be involved with your program. So I know we've done that in my home church, and that's helped with engagement. And then another one is we just simply move the time of the youth Sabbath school to 3 p.m.
Okay.
And that's helped with engagement. I don't know why, but that's helped with engagement. So yeah, just little things like those can sometimes people, oh, this is different, this is new. Not really, it's the same Sabbath school lesson, but it's just a different time.
So sometimes we need to repackage and rebrand, right? Sometimes that can foster engagement, like sparks other people's inquisitiveness. So that's a really good point. Thanks for sharing that, Sam. And also, we give our young people time to wake up and engage with Sabbath school at 3 o'clock rather.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
I just find that when we have our discussions with our young people, I basically require them to put their videos on, because I mean, they're obviously familiar with each other, but I know that when they join the NEC Sabbath school, it is quite frustrating because the panelists spend half the time going, are you there? So-and-so, are you there? Are you there? And I think that's really not conducive. Like, it should foster, even though they come from different churches, if they have their videos on, if they've been there 2 months now, they'd be familiar with each other. And then you're cutting back on the finding out. It's like a seance. Are you there? Hello, make a noise kind of thing. So I think we should make it a requirement. If you're joining, you should really just put your video on. So.
I think having your video on does help. It definitely does help. I know that some people are a bit shy and they like, I run, for example, I run teen Sabbath school, and I know some of my teens are in bed, but I'd rather them be in bed with their video off and in Sabbath school than be like just in bed and not in Sabbath school at all. So I think definitely I strongly encourage them to put their video on and to not just type in the chat, please talk to me. But I think we have to kind of be flexible in that. And I think over time, like you're saying, 2 months in, there's an expectation then that you're kind of used to this now. So, please do your best to engage a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's important it adds another level to the engagement that the effort that they're putting in, and it makes the program better 100%. Does anyone else want to offer? Did I see a hand?
Yeah. Something that we did is that we would break down the stories and try to get them to associate it with situations in their lives or with imagery that they could see. So we had the story of John the Baptist and Salome and the dance and the banquet. So it got them to imagine like to describe in their eyes what kind of place would the palace have been, what kind of girl how would have Salome had looked. And some people would be like, oh, she was like Angelina Jolie, or she was like this. So trying to get them to take like a small story in the Bible and just make it real for themselves so that they could see the story and be like, oh, that makes some sense in the context, because they were saying that they'll read it and not make it real. So that was something that was really helpful. And then they would draw pictures or make like little comic book strips of the stories so that they could engage with it and try to understand what was going on with the characters.
Denise, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, also one thing that kind of worked with my youth previously, I'm the assistant for now, but I think like we kind of thought that, well, I knew that it worked for me. I don't know if everyone is familiar with the GYC evangelism spiral, and definitely within applying that through the youth in my church, it really did help, because then they're more engaged into the activities that they put in, because each youth then have a responsibility of coming up with an event that they would want to attend, and that gives them an accountability. They're accountable for that event that they're going to choose. Therefore, they're going to have to make time and effort to be in that event and to be in that kind of situation, because they put effort and kind of and thought about it. So definitely applying the evangelism spiral on the youth programming as well, and the creativity just pops up. So if you have probably like time, like search on the GYC evangelism spiral, and they have like a poster which we print out, and then we just stick it onto like on share screen, and then they will choose like the month that they want to work with, and then that's when they put in the events and the things that they want to do throughout those months. So it really did help.
Yeah, so that's going back to that structure, right? So having those bones allows you then to add everything onto it and foster and get engagement through accountability, right? I think that's really important. And something that we highlighted before was like, youth ministry is for youth by youth. So getting them involved and having and not only getting them involved, but having that level of accountability to one another and to you as the youth leader really, really fosters engagement, and allows them to be creative in a structured way. And also, I think before we were talking about application, right? So we were talking about, okay, how does the Bible apply to my life, and that kind of practical creativity, like imaginatively, how am I putting myself into that situation? How does that work for me today? Bringing the Bible alive for our young people is really important. Before I move on, does anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, really quickly, one thing that we kind of tried, well, we have brought it back. You know how after lunch you just kind of chill and chat as everybody does in whatever the youth room is. Yeah, so we brought that back, but on Zoom, where it's just literally you just come on Zoom and we just chat about whatever. And that's kind of brought up a lot of hidden talents that a lot of youth members had that wouldn't necessarily be relevant in a church building setting, but because we're online, it makes sense. So like we've got loads of motion graphic designers, we've got loads of illustrators, loads of like secret musicians who aren't confident playing in church. So like loads of stuff like that has come out. So right now I'm putting together, we did a virtual choir project a few months ago, but I'm doing, I mean, yeah, we'll see how it turns out. But I'm kind of working on a bigger sort of virtual choir project that kind of brings in these extra talents. So we've got one of our newly discovered motion graphics designers designing like a logo. I've got pulled in a couple of musicians that I didn't know existed. So I mean, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, just stuff like that where it might be some kind of talent that they might not have seen as relevant because it's not something they could have used in a church building, but because we're online, they might be able to do something different, and then to just kind of create the space to let them use that gift.
I love that. I think that kind of balances us onto the side of character, right? So that having that character to be able to draw out and discern those talents within our youth, and just spending the time to chill with them, that in itself has brought out a vast amount of creativity, and creativity that's relevant to them, not just trying to kind of funnel them into the church structure of AY or the church structure of like divine service that we would normally. So I think that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Chill out with your youth, even on Zoom. Prince, I feel like I saw you clapping and then your camera came on and then you kind of Zoom stutter. Go on.
My point's already been said. Praise God, like God works wonderfully. Because yeah, one of the things we do as well, I know Sam's come on a few times, and some of we have like a chill time after AY, and it kind of happened organically in the sense that we obviously, like you said, after lunch normally people like to chat and stuff, and with our church specifically, something that we found we always used to do, we've done for ages, is every time after AY we'd always we'll do something. We'd either have a social or go out together kind of thing, go eat together or something. Or so what we started to do on Zoom is after AY, rather than quickly like rushing off or anything else, it kind of like it happened the first time organically in the sense that we just started chatting and just basically seeing how people were doing, how their lives were going, so not really anything related to the church or the Bible or anything like that, just like find out how people are doing. And then it became a thing really, which we've been doing since April really, that we'll have a chill time every time after the AY session. And sometimes they go on till, and I think it's even better in the winter because obviously Sabbath comes in, Sabbath comes in early, but or ends earlier, but most of the time people don't really, in a lockdown, people don't really have much to do anyway. So yeah, we'd normally just stay on. Sometimes it's gone until like 9-10 o'clock in the evening. Bearing in mind AY finishes at like 5. So you're literally just talking to each other for about 4 hours. But I think it helps week after week. It helps to build that relationship with each individual. And I think it's helped a lot with the youth during lockdown in the sense of when it was a bit more open during the tiers. Some people visited each other, and like some of them have actually started like growing plants together, weirdly enough, and doing just different activities together kind of thing, and just building friendships. So I think the chill element of it is quite good.
Excellent, thank you. Denise has her hand up. She's like, do I?
That was earlier, I think.
Okay. Let's move on. Unless anyone, final call, anyone?
I like that grow a plant idea that Prince said. I think I might just plant some seeds. Seeds. Who can grow the best plant? I like it.
Long-term project.
Indeed.
Okay, so in summary, these are what I had considered. So don't be afraid to disrupt the norm. I think that's kind of what Hannah was saying about like, oh, we're now having like a round table divine service, like where everyone gets involved. Accept the challenge of doing something differently from the way it usually is done, but also your job as a leader then is to maintain the boundaries of that so that it still is productive. Be imaginative. So yeah, what was it like back in those days? What was the Bible like? Consider different perspectives. Who was talking about their teens and youth and how someone was like, oh, God wasn't forgiving, and then having that discussion then to bring out the different perspectives within your group. That definitely fosters engagement. And include multi-sensory elements, including illustrations and object lessons. So we've kind of done this already, but I would like us kind of as our final sharing situation to share resources. So I've tried to do a few resources throughout, but what resources are you using, especially in terms of now things being more virtual? What are you finding works for you? I have a few that I could share, but I'd really be interested to know what formats and what resources you guys are using.
I don't know if this really counts, but I was going to say one of the things, Pastor Randall, I love this one. We've been using I know someone mentioned in terms of going through the history of the church and like Acts and stuff, we've kind of started to do something similar, but we've been using the lineage series. So basically one of the ladies in our church has been creating like a weekly quiz, which basically the youth have to watch the series for that week. And then they have to kind of like, in a sense, kind of memorize it or like commit to memory some of the dates and the events that take place, etc. And then there's like a weekly quiz that we do just to help them, just learning about the history of the church, really.
Yeah, anyone else?
Kind of on the same lines. I don't know if you guys have seen The Chosen. If you haven't seen The Chosen, watch I'm like The Chosen's biggest ambassador in all walks of life. Because on the app they also have a watch party feature. So again, I campaigned it to you. So we were watching The Chosen together, and it sparked a really, really good conversation because obviously a lot of people were to say that you never really see Jesus as so human. And it sparked a lot of really interesting discussions, especially in episode 1 and Mary Magdalene and the journey that all the disciples went through and all of that kind of thing. We did a lot of watch parties actually. So we did The Chosen, we did a couple of the Kendrick brother movies, Prince of Egypt, all that kind of stuff, and then just kind of a discussion little session afterwards.
Thank you. I've seen a bit of The Chosen, and it's really good. It has
watch it.
There's some poetic license going on there, but also it
sticks quite like with the poetic license they stick quite accurately to the Bible, which is what I appreciated about it. So definitely worth the watch.
Thank you for that recommendation. Ifaniel, have I said your name correctly?
Yes, you have. I heard somebody mentioned about virtual choirs, what we've used in our church. I use the a cappella app. It saves you a lot of editing.
Ooh.
So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I've also done the manual by iMovies. If you have a lot of time and if you want it to look really, really good, I suppose that's the way to go. But yeah, if you want to just put things together very quickly, then the a cappella app is quite handy.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? No? Okay, so I'll share a few and maybe it'll spark some thoughts for you guys. So things that I have done or that I know NEC Youth have been doing, or things that like have been happening with my church. So we did, I love this one, we did like a Google world map scavenger hunt situation. So we had specific places that needed to be found, biblical places around the world, right? And had clues and cues and prompts, and got our youth to kind of just travel the globe and answer the questions. That was really fun. We have lots of games nights with a variety of different games involved. One of my favorites was the Masked Singer. We did that. That was great. Got our young people involved with that. They were very engaged with that. We talked about topics that were current. So last year it was a lot of Black Lives Matter. We've talked about like the vaccine. We've had people come in to speak, like different people coming in to speak on topics that they are experts in. So doctors, we've had mental health practitioners, trying to keep it as relevant as possible to the experience, but also, like Sam was saying, we are able to travel the globe in terms of picking people to be available as long as people say yes. So getting them into our Zoom room to speak to our youth. I have more, but does anyone else, have I sparked any ideas for anyone?
Oh no, go on, Gosford.
I like the lineage series that was it for Prince that suggests, because I've been watching, I've watched some of them and they're very interesting, you know, how it's filmed and how it's done. And I think I'm gonna take that suggestion for us, you know, because it's so interactive that you could watch one and you can have a discussion. Because the thing is, a lot of us would never get a chance to go to these places, but just seeing it and having that discussion about it and kind of, and then I guess merging it with the Bible itself, so you can get the real view, and then you could just discuss, you know, the Bible perspective to it. Could be a good idea. So I'm actually gonna jump on that one.
Oh, thanks for sharing, Prince. So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I like your suggestion of the scavenger hunt. I mean, I'm a nerd at heart, so for me, I like looking at maps, and when I teach the youth, I mean, like, do you know where this is and where that is? And they just give me this blank look, and I'm like, do you know, if you could picture this in your head, and if you know the relationship, or, you know, the distances and whatnot, you would get more into the story. So could you please send me what you did with that, so maybe we can get them more interested?
Sure. And I think it's really good if you're doing like the journey of Paul. We've been using maps for that as well. So like, oh, where's Paul today? He's here on the map, and having a visual of that. So yeah, I'll do my best to get that over to you. Anyone else?
Just I don't know why I forgot about this. We've been using our Instagram a lot in terms of I mean, mostly to do community work, because obviously we can't be out in the community as much, so we do a lot of interactive stuff both with our youth and then what's going on in the community. So we'd be sharing like where to get counselling sessions within Chelmsford area, all that kind of thing, support local businesses and all that kind of stuff. And it's really boosted our engagement. So we've had a lot of people who just followed us on Instagram who've ended up coming to our sessions, got us on the local radio. But we also do like a lot of stuff with the community as a whole. So we do gospel music Sundays where we feature an SDA artist. They come on for like 30 minutes on our Insta Live. Speaking of which, if you guys know any artists, musicians who would like to be on our Gospel Musical Sunday, let me know. And we do that once a month. So it's kind of just, kind of sharing the whole community, Adventist community as a whole, and just you taking advantage of the platform that we've got going.
I love that. Gospel Music Sunday. Love that. Yeah, and I love the way you quickly brushed over the fact that you were in the news. Like, whoa, we were in the news and blah, blah, blah. Props to you guys. Well done. Well done for your hard work.
Yeah, I mean, it's local news, but it's obviously the important part that we wanted was emphasis on community outreach. So it's just whether it's like, I guess it's just the emphasis of we're not just here to bash people with Bibles, but we're here to serve the community as a whole. So in whatever way that we can help the local people around us, because we want people to know who we are, but for a good reason, and to build the good relationships and then going with that. But yeah, no, it was fun.
Well done, guys. I love that. Anyone else? I'll share. When we were allowed to leave the house and meet, one family and all that stuff, in the variety of different rules that we've had. So we did a walk. Our church did it. We found an opening where we could do a walk. So we had we kind of met in small groups and staggered our walk, and then had a treasure hunt along the way, a scavenger hunt along the way, should I say. So, and then each group had a map that they had to follow and clues that they had to answer, and it was there were points given, and it was a really lovely Sabbath afternoon, and kind of maybe one of the only times that our young people had been able to see each other on that scale last year. So it was really lovely, and God held off the rain. Like, as soon as we got back to our car park meeting point, thunder and lightning just came down on us, but God held off the rain for the time that we were walking. So it was a real blessing. So that's something that you might want to think of doing as things start to open back up. Anyone else? I know NECyouth have used Goose Chase last year, and that was really fun, and it spanned like a few days, so that was really fun, and a lot of people were able to get involved with that. If you don't know about it, it's an app. Check it out, download it, something you could utilize for your young people. Anyone else?
My youth as well is currently doing, and this just goes with the strategy and the planning and stuff. So during the 9 weeks course during AY, we're doing the fruits of the Spirit. So one youth kind of would do love, one youth would do peace and etc. And they've we kind of center a fruit as a discussion. So for example, love, what are the types of love, and how can love be applied to this kind of situation? And then that's when we break up into groups, and then we kind of share our ideas and stuff. And also with peace, how can peace be manifested when at work, or when there's a crime or / murder and stuff like that. And it really does generate conversation and discussion amongst the group as well. And yeah, like I said earlier, accountability, because they have to then search up encouragements and Bible verses, and also stories of the Bible on which they can take love from and peace from. So, and we also did a theme called resilience. And so where can we get resilience is most kind of applied. So for example, where is resilience at work during this pandemic? Where is resilience, and how the pros and cons of resilience? So I definitely have the kind of theme over a month, and then our youth kind of break it down into chunks, into where can that keyword apply into situations in reality.
Great, I love that. I'm sure that some of us can utilize that idea for ourselves. That's really good. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? While we're on the topic of themes, something that we were doing at my church last year was like we used Zoom as like a studio. So we kind of had our AYs as themed within like a studio setting. So we all had our background. We like the youth leadership team would change their background to like a studio, like a radio setting, or like in a studio somewhere, and we'd like broadcast the AY and kind of bring that extra element of creativity to it, and then we'd like play. So we asked our young people to kind of put in. We took a poll and asked our young people to drop songs that were keeping them going during this period of time, and like a little small testimony. And so we'd read them out as if we were like a radio show in between the different activities that we were doing. So like, oh, so-and-so says blah, 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 this next caller. And so our things like our quizzes would like, oh, we have caller number 1 on the line. And it just brought a little bit of fun to the way in which we packaged and presented the AY meeting. And our young people are quite young as well. So it kind of lent itself to them, to like their age range. So that was really fun. So think about things like that to kind of spark engagement, and it kind of just brings a level of relaxation to the meeting, and you allows people to almost forget that it's Zoom. Okay, does anyone else have any more? I have a few that I've just thrown on a page. So vision boarding. I know there's a church who were doing this recently. So because it was the new year, they like did a Zoom vision board session. So like, oh, what would you like out of 2021? What are your hopes and dreams? Let's all get together and cut things out and stick them on and make it beautiful, that kind of thing. And then they were, that also sparks conversation and engagement around like what people's hopes and desires are for the future. We said socials. So I know many churches are doing socials, quiz nights, movie nights. So someone said a watch party, a game show. We did a social distancing walk, some volunteering. So from an example of my own church, we have a food bank and a lot of our youth are getting involved. We're not allowed to like meet up per se for church, but we can get involved with being engaged with the food bank. A lot of our older youth we don't really see them as much maybe online, but we see them getting involved with the food bank. So they might go to Stack and Pack, or they might go to do drop-offs. So we do drop-offs of hot food and shopping to different people in the Birmingham area, and they will get involved with that. So even though I think a lot of them who are working are zoomed out by the weekend, so we don't necessarily see them online, but we do see them getting involved kind of in that practical way in the community. Could do a paint and sip. You could do a cook along. I don't know if anyone else has any other things to throw at the page. Feel free to jump in because I'm bringing this to a close now. So any further ideas?
My thought of an international social where you play the games that you would play in your particular culture, because we've got a big mix. You've got like Portuguese and there's loads, but I'm just not, it's too late, I can't even think. But yeah, and a friend of mine, he's got an app called African Charades as well. So we're thinking of having that for a game to play with. It's free to download and everything, and it's good to support your own. So yeah, that's what we were thinking.
Brilliant. Anyone else?
Earlier on when lockdown began, we basically got the youth, we put a list of the people who don't normally join our church Zoom, So we asked the youth to choose an older person from the church and call them, have a conversation. Obviously, because they're young, there was a lot of resistance. But of those that actually did it, it was refreshing for them to find out that this was just not an old person, that he used to drive a plane, he used to be a pilot or something like that. But I think I would pick that up again and basically have them present something new about an elderly person. So you're doing something for the elderly person, but also you're getting the youth to be able to come out of their comfort zones and invest time with another person.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that. And I think it brings out an important point that we haven't really touched on, is that kind of fostering intergenerational interaction. That also fosters engagement. And I think, yeah, a lot of time the youth are surprised by the experiences of the older members of the church. Thank you. I really like that. There's something that's happening at my church is some of our young people are writing letters to the older members of our church. And I know that's been really well received. And I think it's a two-way blessing. So the older members aren't obliged to write back. They don't really provide their address, but I know that the older members are like, they're the prayer warriors. So they're praying up our young people, that young person who writes to them, that person is automatically then on their prayer list and they're being prayed for. And I know that, so it's working both ways. But thank you for that. I think that's a really valid point. Anyone else before we kind of wrap up and bring it to a close?
I know something that my friend did. Actually, Farry, you'll know. So Trisha was saying for what they did, the inverse study, he got, I think it's had a couple of them now. So CQ's been on there. I don't even think she just came on.
Yeah, no.
She saw the Zoom link and just came on.
I've set it as my target for 2021 to have all of the Inverse panelists come. So we've had Justin and Callie. And then I had a meeting with Siku this week and she's getting Jonathan to do soon, as in to actually host. And then Siku's going to host. My mission for 2021 is to get the full Inverse panel. Trisha kind of started it off, but listen, it's going to happen by God's grace. I'll even come with a testimony that it will happen. But yeah, no, that one, yeah, Siku just turned up and she's like, yeah, no, I just heard of you guys. So I thought I'd come. So she kind of inspired my mission, but it will happen. By God's grace, it will happen.
Yeah. That's excellent. I think, yeah, definitely we are crossing continents, 100%. Brilliant. Anyone else?
I know something that our youth have been doing. They do a regular Monday night thing. And what Jonathan's done is, because it's so regular, everybody knows that it's happening, regardless. So, because everyone knows that it's happening, I'm even getting mums who their children aren't coming to church and they're saying, Sam, invite my son. So that's been building momentum. It took a while for him to build momentum, but he's finally built it. Sometimes I feel like sometimes you have to push on with things until people catch on.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have to persevere. Things don't always happen straight away. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Sam.
On Wellingborough, I mean, we're just starting. I mean, we haven't had AY for a whole year. For 2020, yeah, the whole of 2020. So, I mean, I was just asked, to take up the role early in January. Well, yeah, a few weeks ago, actually. So, it's kind of discussion was, okay, should we have AY every Sabbath? Or should it be twice a week, and I think it's just on the back of what Sam said. I was saying, I mean, if we could have it every week, it could at least, there's that consistency where if, some can attend 1 week, they don't have to sit and think, oh, did we miss the week that we have in AY? But if it's always there, they could just join whenever. Oh, yes, I'll join AY this Sabbath, I'll join next Sabbath. So kind of that's kind of my plan of kind of starting things again. Obviously, sometimes we have only 18 people, which it's not only, it's still a reasonable amount of people, you know. And I guess it's not worrying about the amount of people. I guess is the more we have it and the more we encourage youth to come and they let each other know. And then, like Sam says, it's going to build eventually. And when it's consistent, then they can depend on it happening and not just this few times, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Danielle, you got your hand up. Have I said your name correctly?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I had a point, but also a question as well for some help. So the first thing, I guess for our youth, events haven't really, or programs haven't worked, like traditional AY, they haven't really worked for our youth. I guess something that we'll start looking more at this year is like, how do we use their skills? So something that we're starting is like a lot of our youth, a lot of us are quite passionate about education. So especially with schools closing, etc., we're looking to start like a mentoring scheme for the younger children. Whereas like we do like one-to-one like homework support or like, you know, tutoring like specific subjects, because a lot of us have like quite specific subject knowledge, and people seem to be taking up quite well to that. And like last night we had a vision board party, and this is where the question comes in, and that's probably the most we've seen our youth come out and actually engage with something that we've done, and it was like, oh wow, this is hopeful, you know. But the question really is, Bible study is something that we've really, like, historically, I'd even say that it's been difficult to engage people in. As we've tried different approaches of like moving the time, we've tried, you know, what do you guys want? And then they say what they want, but then they don't actually come out. Or we've asked, who do you want to teach you? We've kind of put it on them, as well as tried to go off what we kind of, based on what we reviewed. So I was wondering, does anyone have any tips, or any advice based on your own experiences of how do you engage young people, particularly in like more devotional Bible study, read the word kind of activities, as well as the fun social activities as well? Yeah, if you've got time, that would be super helpful, please.
Does anyone have a word to offer?
I mean, I haven't tried it myself, but I see it works on Clubhouse. Is the title that you give it, like rather than say, okay, today we're going to be looking at the book of Daniel, like just give it like it's clickbait titles is essentially, because it works for me on Clubhouse. I've just got one, someone's pigged me into a room that says God does allow us to have multiple husbands, and that's what I'm going after. No idea what the topic's actually going to be, but like, yeah, you know, there's clickbait kind of headers just so people are like, yeah, like what are we actually talking about? But yeah, no, that's just one idea.
Brilliant. Yeah, I was going to say, maybe sometimes you have to use the back door. So maybe repackage or rebrand something that is the same thing, but it just sounds and looks a little bit different to conjure up some engagement. Go on, Ifaniel, you were going to say something.
Well, what works with our Bible study is basically we've got the one presenter who everyone's required to read what we are studying, but then we've got the one youth who would present. But they have different skills. Some people can field questions quite easily. Some of them tend to sermonize. So I know my children find it annoying when I jump in, but basically when the presenter tends to sermonize, I just jump in and pop questions, like, and field it individually to coax those who are silent and who are on the verge of zoning out. Just ask them the question, and that keeps the level of engagement high.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sam?
As well, you can, because everything is Zoom at the moment. I don't know if you're meeting locally or if you're doing Zoom. What you can do is you can get like, so I don't know, say you're doing Bible study twice a month or every 3 weeks. You can have one where you know they're going to be there. Relationships. Everyone's going to be there. Sexuality, something like that. Whatever. You know they're going to be there. So then, and then maybe you get a guest in to come and do that. Then you have something, so you've got your soft topics and you've got something more where you want them to learn something a bit different, maybe something a bit about what we believe, and you get a guest in as well. So So then you kind of build it on the soft, and then you kind of start weaving in doctrinal and lifestyle things at the same time, and that can sometimes help out. Like, so you've got your how to know God's will, you've got your relationships, what does it mean to live with purpose, and then you've also got your where do we go when we die, but you maybe you call it coping with death instead of state of the dead. Do you see where I'm coming from? So you can that might be an idea.
Okay, so some understanding. So kind of build up the topics. So start off a bit with more of the lighter touch topics, the entice actually, and then dig a bit deeper. Eventually, kind of build up to the more doctrinal.
But even with the lighter, quote unquote, lighter topics, you can still go hard. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask. Say you've got your favorite speaker on YouTube, DM them on Insta. I just like, look, I know you don't know me, but I was just wondering if I could ask for a favor. I'm a youth leader in London, and I'm just wondering if I could have an hour of your time just to share on this topic. And more time, people will say yes, as a general rule of thumb. Some people, you might not get an answer for some people, but I know Jonathan's done it. I know Trisha's done it with just different people from around the world, and people have come through.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Definitely got some things to run away with and share with the guys as well. So thank you so much.
Brilliant. So guys, I know it's rough out there, but I wish you all well. I pray that God will increase your engagement with your young people, and that even though we have many barriers, that you'll be able to be successful in your youth ministry, and that our God's a creative God, right? So he has made us in his image, which means we are also creative. And I feel like if we seek him, and we seek for that discernment, and we are open to the whispers of the Holy Spirit, then we'll be able to foster those creative elements that we didn't know we had, and we'll be able to engage our young people. So I wish you all well, and I hope that this has been useful. I really hope that it's been useful, and you've had some things that you can take away. I know for me it's been useful. I've collected some ideas, and I was hoping for that today also. So thank you everyone for sharing. So I am going to wrap up now. Can I have a volunteer to pray for us? Would anyone be willing to do that for us to close?
I don't mind.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Now we know how our young people feel when we're like, come on guys, pray. Danielle, would you be willing? Thank you.
Okay, let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you so much once again for the privilege and the opportunity that we've had to come together as youth leaders, God, to learn, God, and to discover even more ways of how we can best serve the young people that you've given us, God, to look after. I want to thank you for using our speaker Denise this evening, for really helping us to think about more creative ways in which that we can meet the needs of the youth that we have, and also to share from our own experiences of how we can help each other as well through this process as we are leading. I pray that you continue to develop us, continue to develop our characters, continue to develop our strategies, God. And I pray and I commit all of the plans, all the ideas, all the visions that you've given to us, everything into your hands, God, and that you will establish them, and that truly will be able to make the real impact on the lives of young people, God, that they will truly be transformed, and we will see that they will give their lives in total surrender to you. So again, we praise you for the privilege to serve, God, and I pray that you continue to help us to serve with the very best parts of ourselves, God, and you continue to use us, God, as we do our best. So be with us, help everyone to have an incredible week. Go ahead of us, go ahead of any trials and challenges that we may face, God, and we are trusting that your grace will be sufficient for us and give us the strength that we need to make it through this week, but also through our time in service as well, we pray. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. So guys, I wish you a good week ahead, and thank you